Welcome to the Global Tech Leaders Podcast, where we help business leaders and individual contributors with actionable insights to hit their number and figure out the nuances of truly operating a business globally today, squeezing the essence of the lessons learned from the planet's top tech leaders. This is your guide to joining the fast track to global market scaling.
So welcome to today's show, where I'm super excited to welcome Bobby Umar to the discussion. He is a TEDx speaker, no less. His bio reads that every person has a story, purpose, and legacy. He's a keynote speaker. He's a virtual trainer and coach, an expert in thought leadership, storytelling, and is the CEO of Discover Your Personal Brand. He's been on a hell of a journey to get to where he is. This is a topic I'm extremely passionate about. His bio reads extensively, so I'm not going to go to that now. I'm going to actually dive into it on the show and let Bobby tell that story. But welcome to today's show, Bobby.
Thanks, Ross. I'm happy to be here.
Well, let's kick off in the usual fashion, as we often do here, where we get folks to tell us about their journey. What was it that brought you to where you are today, doing what you do? And what were some of the kind of inflection points along the way? I know you say here in your bio, I took a long time to figure out what that was and what my purpose was. And as I was sort of saying to you before we started to record here, some of the most interesting people I know are in that category. So maybe just share with our audience your journey thus far, if you would.
Sure. I think the general gist and story I tell people is, I was one of those people that felt kind of lost and stuck and unfulfilled in the paths that I've chosen. So I first went into engineering. I was good at math and physics, so I went into engineering. And while I was there, I found the job really boring. I didn't feel inspired. While I was there, I decided to start a musical theater company on the side as a side hustle. And I grew this organization from 2 of us to 150 people in 4 years, all while working in a full-time job as an aerospace design engineer. And, but the engineering didn't really fit in. And then I eventually got let go because, I wasn't even doing good work. And by the time they let me go, I was just like uninspired in terms of what I wanted to do. And then I was like, well, I like the theater company thing and I like people. Maybe I'll do something like that. And then I decided, maybe I'll go into entertainment, movies and television. So I did my MBA. And that went really well. I was like, this is great. I excelled there. I found my passion again. I found I was president of the MBA Association. I was straight A student. I was valedictorian. It was amazing. Wow. So I found my mojo again because I'd lost it,
Sure.
And, but when I got out, it was very hard to get a job in film and television when most of my work was in theater. And at the time I hadn't discovered the power of networking. So I decided to go to the next best thing, which was brand marketing. I did that. And again, great people, fun work, whatever. But at the same time, I still wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling like it was the right thing to do. And then at a certain point, I had health issues. My wife and I are trying to start a family. We're having trouble. So we investigated, did some health stuff. And then I remember in January 2006, I had a panic attack, my first ever anxiety attack, which has never happened before because I'm a pretty chill guy.
Wow.
And then, I was working 80 hours a week. It was really overwhelming. I was tired. And then in March, I went to the doctor and he said, I think there's something wrong. And I went to the doctor for tests in December, but I didn't go see him for the results till March because I was just so busy and overwhelmed. And then he said, come in, let's do another test. And then a week later, he said, you know what, you have diabetes, Bobby. I'm like, oh, whoa. Okay. And I was like, oh, really? He said, yeah, but all the stress of your work and your pancreas just kind of shut down and, that's it. And I was in denial for about a week. And then finally I went to my employer. I said, look, I need to take care of my health. So I want to take 2 weeks off. And just to give some perspective, a regular blood sugar level is 6.2. My blood sugar level in December was 12. And my blood sugar level in March was 16. And so that's why I was fatigued. That's why I had the anxiety attack. That's why I just couldn't function as much anymore. So I went to my employer and I said, listen, I need to take care of myself. I want to take 2 weeks off. And then I also want to get back to what I call quote unquote normal hours, which was 50. I said, how about 50 hours a week versus 80? That's what I said at the time because that was my mindset. Anyways, 3 weeks later, they gave me a package that said, see you later. Didn't want to deal with me.
Okay.
And it was a nice package because I think I kind of blamed them for what had happened to me. And so I was like, this is great.
I see.
I will do this. But then I started taking care of my health. And then about a month or so later, my wife also had health. She almost died of E. coli. And it was like a really Yeah, it was a very surreal situation in the emergency room for the entire day. She was in ICU for a week, then she was in the hospital for another week, and then I took care of her for 2 months. And that's when we're like, okay, what do we really want to do with our lives? What's important to us, And she was thinking about that. I was thinking about that. And I started talking to people about, what do I really want to do? And what's interesting is that for many years, I used to work in programs for youth, helping inspire young high school kids. And there was a guy there many years ago saying, hey, Bob, you're really good at talking to the kids and sharing emotional stories and being vulnerable and having that inspiration. You should be a professional speaker. And I was like, no, I'm trying to make it big in the corporate world. So that's not for me, is what I said. And then when I was in the corporate world, we'd often do offsites. Sure. And so I would volunteer to do a couple of team building events because I've been doing them for a long time. I'd had 15 years experience back when I was even younger, being like a camp counselor, camp director, and then doing facilitation with the high school kids. So I offered to do a couple of team building events, and every time I did them, I was like, oh, that was amazing. You had these great activities, and you gave us you debriefed, and you related it back to the business. You gave us some inspiration. And I was like, wow, have you ever thought about doing that for a living? And I was like, no, I'm trying to make it to the next level here, sir. Like, I don't want to I didn't want to say I want to leave do something else. And so while I was off and getting back into better health, I spoke to the Council of Umar, which is my 4 best friends from my university days. And the guys, I'm not sure I want to go back to brand marketing. I'm not sure I want to do engineering. I'm not sure what I want to do. And they're like, have you ever thought about being like a speaker? And I was like, you know what? I have, because it's been brought up multiple times. And so that's when I decided to really do some exploration and build my personal brand. So that's when I dove in my personal brand. I did a bunch of surveys. I did a bunch of online assessments. I talked to people and tried to really figure out what are my values, personality traits, skills, interests, passions, and to really figure something out. And in doing that process, I found out that 5 things about my personal brand. Number 1, Bobby loves people. Number 2, Bobby loves to nurture, like my mom. Bobby loves to perform and present because I used to do musical theater and be on stage. Bobby loves to persuade and influence. I'm a talker, I'm a persuader, I'm a sales guy. Sure. And then number 5, Bobby likes diversity, which is why I would often get bored at jobs because I was doing repetitive stuff. And diversity of experience, diversity of people, diversity of activities was good for me. And so that's when I decided to launch my motivational speaker story. In the beginning, it was slow. I had kids. So my first child was born a year after I launched my business. My second child was born 2 years later. And I was one of those. In fact, I just talked about this on Twitter just moments before we did this interview. Yep. I was a 25-hour-a-week entrepreneur. I was just with the kids. I was supporting my wife. I loved being home. Did it impact the growth of my business? Absolutely. It definitely slowed things down, but I didn't care. And I'll never regret the time I spent with my kids at home when they were around before they went to daycare. That was some of the best nurturing times of my life. But then I think that a turning point in the speaking career was when I discovered social media. And I remember doing a lot of work, and then someone asked me to do a TED Talk. And I was like, well, what's a TED Talk? I don't know what that is. Wow. And I looked it up and I was like, whoa, everybody's been like political leaders, sports leaders, academic leaders, everybody had done a TED Talk. I was like, wow, okay, count me in. I will do this. And I saw it as a great marketing and branding tool. And and it's funny, as a professional speaker, it was the most I've ever been nervous. Mostly when I prepare presentations, I either don't practice, I actually don't do rehearsal, or I do it once or twice. For that TED Talk, I rehearsed that thing 30 times. I was so nervous. And but also at the same time, I realized that I realized social media was something that was a big piece. I talked to a bunch of people about sharing your voice with the world, how social media amplifies your voice. And I was like, you know what? It shouldn't be just for sports heroes or celebrities. It should be for people who want to build a voice. So on the day of my first TEDx talk, which was I believe March 5th, 2011, I launched my social media strategy, which would start a Facebook page, a newsletter, Twitter strategy, a LinkedIn strategy. And 6 months into it, I had about 5,000 followers on Twitter. And then someone said, Bobby, I love what you talk about leadership and engagement and connection. Can you come in and do something for us? And I was like, whoa, I just got to speak to you off of Twitter. This is amazing. And so I invested heavily into social media. And by the time I got by the time I got to 100,000 followers, which was like 18 months later, again, that's when things really pivoted, because at that point I was now getting tons of opportunities around the world. I, wrote a book. I then got an agent, and then I'd done 4 TEDx talks at this point, and that's when things really started to take off in terms of the speaking business. So, and since that time, it's been a really interesting journey in terms of moving around, evolving, and whatnot. But and then of course, then the pandemic happened, and that was a complete that was also a huge shift, because I had 2 businesses, a speaking business and I had an events business, and both of them collapsed. So 2020 was a very difficult year financially. And I basically booked 300 Zoom calls with people all across my network to listen to what's going on, what are the trends, what are you feeling? And what I learned was 2 kind of things came out. Number one, people want to become better storytellers because they want to tell better stories with their content online. They want to tell better stories with their teams while working virtually. And stories were the things that we were all kind of sharing, because we were all having intimate Zoom calls in each other's homes as opposed to a coffee or a Starbucks. And that was a big thing. So I started investing time and energy into doing those. And then the second thing that came out was a lot of people were thinking about their thought leadership brand, and in 2 ways. One was most people wanted to pivot to do something else. Do I really want to work in this company? Do I really want to commute? And the second piece was, how do I ramp up my brand as an entrepreneur, business owner? How do I ramp up my brand as an executive on LinkedIn and all these other platforms? So I started focusing on the idea of thought leadership branding and leveraging my skills in speaking, storytelling, relationship building to help them, and digital presence to help them do that. And so those 2 themes kind of came. I started focusing more on coaching, group coaching, online programs, until the speaking would come back, which it is now coming back. I'm glad. I'd much prefer to be on the stage in front of 1,000 people, but it's been 19 months since my last public stage speaking gig. But now I have this arsenal of coaching stuff that is a great way to scale the business. So and I also found Clubhouse and social audio apps on Twitter Spaces, which has been an amazing tool, because to me, social audio apps are the new stories. When stories launched on Snapchat and Instagram, it was the way to connect with your audience, show behind the scenes, not worry too much about posts. You can just share a lot of imagery and video behind the scenes, which work really well. To me, social audio is the new stories. It's a proper way to connect, and now I'm integrating it in everything that I do. It's a way for me to deepen connection, to build greater trust, far better than any other platform I've used. I mean, I'm a big video content guy, but I find that the audio conversation of an hour goes a long way to building that whole democratized podcasting is really quite powerful, because even when I do a live stream on video, it's still me talking to everybody else. Or if it's a live stream, they're commenting and chatting, but still not there. Whereas in social audio, everyone comes on stage and we all talk together. And that's actually, people love that. And so for me, that's been the big new trend that I've been working on as well. So that's where I am today. So I hope that was a long story, but for me, feeling lost or stuck or unfulfilled in my path is really my why statement. That's how I help people.
Okay, so I have a ton of questions.
I know. I'm sorry. As well as long story.
No, it's good. It's good.
This and, I talk about health too, because it's part of my journey too, right?
No, absolutely.
I talk about parenting. I talk about health. I talk about everything.
I want to get to that. I want to get to personal branding. I want to get to TEDx, and I want to get to social audio and storytelling, because that's why we're here today. But I guess just for our listeners, and I want to touch on something you said at the beginning. There's a couple of things at the beginning I want to talk about. So my first question is, how the hell did you manage a side hustle to that level of scale? That's my first question. And then I want to talk about inflection points and how you use negative things positively. But let's get to the side hustle first. How the hell did you do that?
You mean the theater company back in the day?
To 150 folks in 4 years part-time.
Yeah, I mean, so I was in my 20s, right? So I was a grinder, a hustler, and I worked myself to the bone. So the way it would work was I would not get much sleep. A typical week would be, 2 or 3 nights. There was 2 nights of rehearsal that would go in the evenings. And then there was a Saturday rehearsal. Sunday rehearsal. There was a Saturday fundraising event. And then on evenings, I would do a lot of marketing. I would fax. This is a long time ago. I was faxing, press releases. I was doing all this stuff until 1 or 2 in the morning. And then I get up at 7 a.m. and go to work. And that was, it was pretty And what's interesting, actually, the first year I did it, I also decided on the first musical we did to produce, direct, and also perform in it. And I started to develop an ulcer. And I was like, okay, your body's telling you, Bobby, you need to take care of yourself. So after that, I realized from now on, I could do 2 of 3. I could either produce and direct, or produce and perform, or direct and perform, but I can't do all 3. So I eased up on that. And one of the things that I'm good at is building community. People always say, how do you get all these people to work for you for free? Because it was a nonprofit theater company. And if you have a really great vision and you mentor and support people, we had a team of like 12 people, and then it just grew and grew with all the members. It was amazing. So, and that's something I've been doing for years. Even when I think about, like, even now we have the club, we have the Thought Leadership Brand Club on Clubhouse, which now has 18,000 members in the club.
Wow.
There's a leadership team of 10 people, and everyone's all working for free because they all see the magic and the vision of what we're trying to do, and I mentor them on a weekly basis. So the theater company back then, it was based on, you can create scale if you have a clear vision and build a solid team and a solid community that wants to enact that vision.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I noticed you mentioned there about having an ulcer. In fact, one of my first sales jobs, we used to joke around and we used to say, well, if you don't have an ulcer yet, you're not trying hard enough,
Right.
That was our kind of mantra. Now, we got it done, but there was a lot of stress, and there was paracetamol kept in the desk. And well, certainly my perspective, other folks might have had stronger stuff, but that's a different story. In terms of how did you use that inner strength, because you talked about panic attacks, you talked about having diabetes. I don't think there's a better inflection point than those instances occurring in your life. So I'm curious to know, like, and you've obviously worked with a plethora of folks, you've got extensive experience now. And my question is, why do you think it is people succeed? Why is it that some people use challenges, down moments to flip them into success, and other folks shut the blinds, close the doors, and lock up shop? What is the traits that you talked about vision? You touched on that a moment ago. What do you see? And secondly, how do you turn that around with the folks who are shutting the curtains and the doors and so on?
Yeah, that's a complicated question. I think it varies from person to person. I mean, most people are, follow a path to success defined by the people. Most people are fearful of change, and so they don't want to leave a company or try something new. Most people are stuck in their mindset or their narratives about what's going on. So, I often talk to a lot of people who are in the corporate space who want to work with me, and then I say, and then I talk to them, I coach them, and they still don't want to leave. And it's like, and I ask them this question: do you want to be here next year calling me again with the same problems? Because you keep saying the same things. Oh, my bonus is coming up, and oh, I'm making some good money. Oh, and my kids are this age, or oh, I'm, all these things come up, but you're miserable in your job. Most of us have this narrative where we say, well, I hate my job, but thank goodness for my wife and kids. So you stay in that job you hate for 10 years. Or opposite, I don't like my wife and kids, but thank goodness for my job. Okay, well, then maybe you should do something about your family situation. But they don't. They just stay the same. Or worse, I hate my wife and kids, and I hate my job, and thank goodness for hot yoga and or rock climbing, and and they stick with these narratives. But to me, why not work on all those things? Right? Why not work on the people in your life? Why not work on your passion pursuits? Why not work on your health and your family and your work, and making sure they're all fulfilling and good? So I think there's a lot there that will peel back. The other thing that I think will peel back is clarity, right? So if you haven't really done the deep dive work in your personal brand, you're not really clear on where you want to go and what you want your legacy to be. Most people, I was talking to a woman just the other yesterday, about in coaching her, and she was saying that she spends her time thinking about what's that next job, okay, director, then vice president, and but she wasn't thinking 20 years from now, what do I want my legacy or happiness to be? She was just thinking from the next role, because she was just ambitious, which is fine, but she wasn't thinking about that long-term thing. She was really apprehensive about coaching, but then when she got into a coaching group, she started to realize there's more things in life that are important, and it's important to work on that mindset. So, I mean, there's a lot of things there, but I think the main theme that's coming up is mindset, right? Because mindset is narrative, mindset is your definition of success, mindset is the fears, mindset is the clarity, right? And if you can work on the mindset and work on that emotional intelligence and emotional awareness, then you're going to be able to break through that. Now, how do you get people to finally make that shift? Well, that's hard. We all have, pains. We all have emotional pain, financial pain, relationship pain, and those things hold us back. They held me back from working on my health. How do you get out of it? Well, you have to have perhaps one of those moments which we don't want. We don't want to have a health scare, but
No.
those things can be a jump start to reaching out and looking for help. But at the end of the day, I find that there's a few things that will help people get there. One is, clarity, which I talked about already. The second is coaching, because a coach will help you ask you the challenging questions, be an accountability person. The third is community, having a community that's going to support you as you go along on this journey. It's hard to do it alone. It's just like Weight Watchers, right? People lose weight because they have a community helping them, they're supporting them. That's way more powerful than just doing it on your own in any sort of situation. And then, the other thing is working on, confidence, working on overcoming your fears. Be confident that, if I do this path or I leave this job or whatever it might be, I'm going to get to a better place. And then finally, consistency. The consistency of actions will then lead to small wins, which will then work on your mindset, build that confidence so that you can start doing that thing, whether you want to break free right away or break free maybe in a year or two. But people got to put the work in. And that's the other thing too. And it's dressed up as work, and they have to do the work, right? And people don't want to do the work.
4-letter word.
Yeah. It takes work. If I want to get fit, I have to put the work in. If I want to build a better life for myself or build a better career, I got to put the work in.
Yeah, I think life is a function of the story you decide to tell yourself, and,
Right.
I can't remember now where this quote originates, but it's whether you tell yourself you can do something or you can't, you're right.
You're right. I use that all the time.
Yeah. And I know I genuinely believe it. And, I see it all the time. And, I suppose just kind of touching on what we've just covered, a friend of mine suggested recently, if you're having a discussion, and it could be with another friend, or this is particularly relevant for family members, where you're like, ask yourself 2 questions before you get involved in a discussion. Number 1, is this person capable of understanding my perspective? Are they intellectually bought into another point of view? That's the first question. And the second question is, are they willing to change or embrace your point of view? Are they willing to adapt and actually say that they might be wrong? And if those aren't yeses to both of those, pointless, absolutely pointless and irrelevant. So you've got to really structure your engagements around being the hell quiet, quite frankly, to put it nicely, where you can win, etc. And I think, those folks need to come to realization themselves that they can help themselves should they so wish to. So I suppose getting into the story piece, how do you become a TED speaker? How do you get involved in that? How do you talk about your stage presence and why you enjoy that so much, and how you help folks there, if you would?
Yeah, so how to become a TED speaker? Well, I think a couple things come into play. Number 1, work on your storytelling to become a better story, because every single TED Talk has a story it's rooted in. So learning to do that really well will serve you well. Number 2, having clarity on what are those topics and those things you want to talk about that are going to get the attention. Because even so, as a speaker or as a TEDx person, the thing that they both do wrong, so people who wanted to start a speaking career, they're not really clear on their target audience, not really clear on their topics and how it serves that audience. And so they can't get the gigs. Similar to TED Talks, they don't really have a really good topic that actually helps them get the speaking, the TED Talks that they want. Most people have a really bad TED, like every time they share me the ideas. I'm actually doing a workshop tomorrow on TEDx workshops and titles, because people usually have bad titles and bad topics. And they don't know like what works, because they don't understand how it works. So to me, that clear topic and titles that tantalizes the target, that's a lot of alliteration, but that's what you need to be able to do that. The other thing I think about too is, I'm big on having a thought leadership brand. So, when you look at the TED Talks, I've done 5 TEDx talks. I've also rejected 3 other ones.
Okay.
Now, all the TEDx talks came, except for 1, came my way because I had a strong thought leadership brand. If you build a strong thought leadership brand and you're known as an expert or an influencer or an authority or a thought leader in your field, people will come to you. And that's kind of how I got them all. The 5th TEDx talk that I did, I applied for because I saw the theme was the power of connections, which is one of my main hashtags. And I just this is great. I have a couple of TED ideas in my head. I want to pitch my hug one. I have a hug idea that I want to do. And so I just did a 4-minute video, sent it, like, guys, I want to do this. It fits with my theme. I could totally nail it. And they called me and say, we want you. I'm like, great. So I did that one. But that was the only time I ever applied for one, because it fit in line with what I wanted to talk about. And it was one of my ideas I really wanted to do. So those are, certain things that will do well for you on the TED Talk stage. And then you also actually mentioned how to be a good speaker on stage. I mean, again, we talked about stories. The other one, of course, structure of your talk, I think, is really, really important. Knowing your audience and what they need, what are the questions in their mind, creating some emotional connection with them. The power of connection works really well. I'm very good at talking about vulnerability. I'm really good at telling stories that creates that human connection.
Yes.
And that to me works really, really well to convince an audience about about the case you're making. So for me, like my 5th TEDx talk, it was actually about the case for 20-second hugs. That's what it was about. And I made the case with stories, case studies, science, data. And I said this, and I even demonstrated the different types of hugs people could do with a bunch of people in the audience. And I did all that because I was making the case why you should do 20-second hugs.
Wow. Okay. Never thought of that before, but I can think from a presence perspective, it would certainly make an impression. You wouldn't forget it in a hurry. There's no doubt about that. Tell me about a turnaround. So I'm obviously anonymize it, but tell me about a turnaround that you're really proud of, that, kind of stood out in your mind that was significant.
A turnaround. Well, I mean, oh man. Well, I mean, I think the turnaround during pandemic is actually something I'm proud of, because I didn't freak out. I mean, here's the thing, like when the pandemic hit, my kids at the time, they were 10 and 12, right? And they were home for 3 weeks. And so we're scrambling to deal with them and make sure they're okay. And so I'm like, and next thing you know, I'm so busy with that. I wasn't doing as much work at that point. And by the time Easter rolled around, which is about, and so what happened was I was also working every day. So I remember I was working 27 days in a row. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out. Like, we need to just take a break. So on Easter weekend, we said 4 days, let's take 4 days off. And so we went for walks with the kids, we played board games, we watched movies, we just did various things. And then after Easter weekend, I realized, wow, I just lost all these speaking gigs from April to October, totaling $60,000. And I was like, yeah, wow. And part of it has been mindset. I mean, mindset certainly helped me, but I didn't freak out. I mean, I certainly was like, whoa, that's a lot. And most of them canceled outright too. There was no reschedule because no one knew what they were going to do with COVID. Like, everyone was canceled left, right, and center. And so, my initial reaction, and my wife was more scared, even though, because I've been an entrepreneur for so long that I'm okay with uncertainty. But she was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? I'm like, well,
I have that.
Let me see. And so for me, the turnaround went well. I booked 300 Zoom calls that year. I talked to tons of people, and eventually pivoted to doing storytelling and thought leadership branding, and to doing digitizing my personal branding program, doing online stuff, and just and it was slow. I mean, I'll be frank, it was hard. I mean, I'm 7 months in, and I wasn't near where I wanted to be, and I took the gulp, and I started looking for a job, and hated the idea of doing that. But that lasted about 4 months, because I finally started to get some success in January of this year, January, February, with Clubhouse and with the launch of my thought leadership brand program. That's when things started to really do much better. So to me, how I handled the pandemic and dealing with the kids, and it was really hard times. Like sometimes when they were home, it was very stressful. I remember talking to my mom, and she was like, you have all this time now with the kids, and why don't you like clean up your crappy apartment, and I was like, Mom, you don't get this, okay? Like, two of my businesses were devastated, and I have literally 25 hours a week to build those businesses, because the rest of my time is dealing with the kids, cooking, doing dishes, and taking care of things. I have no time. Me too. So, I try to explain to her, but now that, we're out in the clear now, and I'm, like I'm feeling good about things, like, to me, that was the thing I'm probably most proud of. Like, we did it, we got through it, and I'm feeling really optimistic.
Where do you think modern workers are going to be placed globally going forward. Like, I think that one of the challenges we have is one of the advantages, the immediacy of technology, right? So what's your take? I've had this with other guests before. What's your take on the availability of people versus the connectivity and the availability versus the downside of that, quandary of, well, actually it means people feel obliged to engage more often, etc. What's the balance there? And you talked about a 25-hour work week, etc. I'm fortunate, I'm blessed, I have the flexibility to do either, and I choose to work out of hours, and I like to spend time during the day with my kids because I can. But what do you think in the corporate world, this kind of sense of being always turned on? I see in Portugal they've just enacted a law that makes it illegal for your manager to text you after hours, for example, and similar in France as well. So I'm just curious on your take on all that.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. So before the pandemic hit, every year I work on a new talk of the year, right?
Okay.
So I was working on this new talk with my agent. Here's what I want to put out there. And I called it The Future of Connection Now. And then when the pandemic hit, it kind of evolved. But the whole premise was that, we are struggling with connection with the self, right? We're struggling with the connection with others, but more importantly, we're struggling with the integration of technology in our lives and how it fits in those things. Those three kind of things in a triangle. How do we connect? Because, we now have an average of 6 to 10 digital devices that, haunt us. We have thousands of, like even look at social media communication tools. I have WhatsApp, I have Telegram, I have Slack, I have email, I have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Twitter direct messaging. Yep. I have text, right? There's so much stuff there. Project management tools. I don't have just one. I use Asana, I use Trello, I use Monday.com. These are all different project management tools. And so we're overwhelmed with all these different software pieces. And so trying to find a way to navigate that and deal with the fact that we're struggling with the pandemic in the virtual world is a huge thing. So in that talk, I talk about trying to find, we actually need to disconnect in order to connect. We need to find ways to have that balance and set those priorities and understand what's going on with these different dynamics. And so, for example, my notifications on my phone have been off for a year or so, which has been great because now when I go into LinkedIn, now when I go into Instagram, I go in with purpose as opposed to do that. I probably should turn off Slack and WhatsApp too, but those are work things, so I keep them on during the day. Or sometimes what I'll take my phone and I'll put it far away.
Sure.
Don't need it while I'm working on stuff. I sometimes turn off the internet when I'm working on a project or a document or a blog post because the emails, get in the way. So I think that to me is going to be interesting. And in the same talk, I also talked about, what's the future of this? What's the trend? And I think, this is a total prediction here, okay? But similar to the fact that in the information age and technology age, technology information has become so far and rampant and powerful, but the education and the assimilation of us humans being able to deal with all that stuff, we're not keeping up with it.
Oh, indeed.
The regular person is not. Yeah. The regular person is not keeping up. And now, the future of what we're doing, I think that it's going to be even a greater gap. There's going to be a 80-20 gap. 20% of people will be able to keep up with this and be, on the cutting edge, or at least, competent to navigate all these things. The other 80% are going to be like those grandparents who can't program a VCR. And I think that's a big problem. There's got to be some sort of education and integration of these things so that people know how it works. And on top of that, companies, and this is good actually because workers now have more power where they're demanding, I don't want to commute, I want to work from home, I want to balance, I love that, which is great. Companies are going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to give them that balance, give them that time off. And I think that to me is a good thing. It's just a question of whether corporations are going to adhere to it in a way that works. So there's lots there, but those are some of my thoughts.
Wonderful. No, I fully agree with that. And I think that there's definitely a balance and there's a mental cleanse that's important. Arianna Huffington talks about not sleeping with any electronic devices in her bedroom as well. And I can fully appreciate why that's important, because you fire out serotonin. I mean, there's literally, there is a release of a chemical in your brain when a notification goes off. And I've seen Joe Rogan talks about this on his podcast. You know, your brain's effectively marinating in serotonin these days, which is not a healthy way to be. And I don't think there's any long-term study on this that will prove me right, but I don't think I'm wrong. Put it that way.
Right.
But yeah, I think you know, for me, I think it's great. Communication is important, but I think also we need to have balance. But you need to have. It's like an addiction, right? It's like any drug. You need to have the mental conversation with yourself and interrupt your own patterns and say, oh, actually, that's what I'm doing. I need to have a chat with myself about that not being okay, and having an allocated slot for that in my life, so to speak, which is very, very important. In terms of some of the folks that you work with, let's go into that for a moment, if you would. What's the average kind of profile of the people that you help, and what sort of successes have you seen, and why does that make you so passionate about what you do?
Well, I mean, there's probably two main areas where I work. I mean, you know, I certainly work with a lot of executives, corporate people, you know, people in the 40s and 50s that are trying to leverage LinkedIn, or they're trying to pivot, they're trying to ramp up to that next level with thought leadership branding, or specific aspects of it, storytelling, you know, public speaking, confidence, mindset, and things like that. So that's kind of one profile. And you know, that one's important in the sense that it pays the bills to a certain extent. Certainly does better than other areas. And then the other one I'm really passionate about are business owners, entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm one myself. I've been through that journey for 15 years. And so helping them find their voice, find that clarity, find a way to leverage social media to build leads, to build businesses, and you know, take their business to that next level. That to me is also powerful, whether they're just starting out or whether they're, you know, established, you know, they're established, but they're still trying to, you know, create that legacy and story for themselves. So for me, those are the types of people I love to work with. And, you know, and right now it's been mostly, you know, coaching or training online. But, you know, when we get to more in-person stuff, I'm looking forward to those, you know, small mastermind events or the large scale conference that I can go and share my thoughts.
Wonderful. And in terms of, you know, kind of breakthroughs, what do you find is one of your key tools that allows you to kind of reach those folks? Is it, you know, maybe that shift in mindset, or, you know, because we talked a little bit earlier about, you know, are people willing to change, etc. Have you any tips and tricks of, you know, things that help you to, we talked a little bit about, we mentioned if you're right, if you believe you can or you can't, you're right. What tools do you use in that regard to help break through to people, or have them hear you, so to speak, with what you're saying?
You know, it's funny, I was talking about this last night over dinner with that friend of mine. And, you know, I start to realize there's certain things that I can do that, you know, some people can't maybe. And so one is the storytelling piece, but not just storytelling, but vulnerable storytelling. I am willing to share extremely vulnerable aspects of my life in a story that emotionally resonates with people, but also opens them up to sharing their own challenges and struggles. You know, my first TEDx talk that I did years ago, the premise was, my wife would say, well, Bobby, how do you meet people for coffee? And in 20 minutes, they tell you everything about their finances and their sex lives and all their deepest, darkest secrets. What do you do? And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about this. And then I made the talk to be about that. But now I see it as a big power, because it's something that really, really works. The data shows that vulnerability really opens people up. Storytelling is a great way to create memorability and accuracy. So I think that works really well, that you know, gets them to open up or think about what they're doing. I think it really gets their attention, whatever it might be. You know, I have a story for everything. So for me, that's probably one of the biggest things that I do that really gets attention, but also gets them to think about it. And the second piece is when I talk to people, and I listen, you know, I do a lot of listening too. I listen to them, and as I'm listening to them, I'm able to come up with some sort of intuition. I'm very intuitive in terms of identifying that thing that I'm seeing based on what you're saying, and here's what I think about it, and then articulate it in a very short, concise, eloquent way that's like, whoa, that hit home, Bobby. I totally get it. And I can do that pretty quickly. I think it's from all the tweeting I've done. You know, I've tweeted for years, and so I can do short, concise nuggets or bits and bytes about things. And so that combined with intuition, when I talk back to somebody, they're like, oh, wow, like you just really encapsulated what I'm going through in my 20-minute story in just, you know, in a couple of lines. And so I think that's another strength that helps me break through the clutter and break through the relationships with people.
Right. You heard it here, folks. That's fantastic. I can see that. I can see how that would work. I suppose as we round the corner here, and we wrap up things, could you share with our audience some of your hacks? We talk a little bit about a couple of $100 you spent recently on a device or a gadget or a gizmo that's changed your life, or maybe share with our audience a bit about how do you hack time, how do you make more time, etc. It seems like you have that nailed. What's your secret?
Yeah, so hacking time. I mean, a big part of hacking time is integration. So integrating things in your life. So for example, sometimes when I run a clubhouse room, a social audio room, I'll be doing something else. I'll be working out, or I'll be doing dishes, or I'll be folding laundry, or I'll be going for a walk.
Interesting.
Integrating that. When the kids were little, we're doing baths, we would do bath time and then call grandma and grandpa on Zoom and have a call. And because it's busy, do we have time to call our parents? Do we have time to do the baths? We have time to cook. So you integrate those things. I think that to me and then that's been a huge part of, because people often say, how do you do all the things you're doing? And then integrating other tools to help you. Like a really good social media tool that I use is Meet Edgar. And that's allowed me to Meet Edgar, and the other one's called If This Then That.
Oh, I know.
For example, right? Because when I upload a YouTube video, it automatically tweets it and shares it on my Facebook biz page. I don't have to worry about doing that on my own. And that integration works really, really well. When I share a post on Instagram, it automatically shares it on Twitter with a picture. And so I'm able to be everywhere at once with less work. And so for me, doing those things also have allowed me to create a message out there and have a machine running from a social media perspective that's gaining traction, getting people's attention, and leading to people replying to me. So and then because I think the other piece is working with people, having communities.
Yep.
I have different communities that all do different things, and I support them with coaching them on a weekly basis and whatnot. But then they're doing more stuff, and they're also helping me out. So what I did in Clubhouse, for example, is I saw the opportunity, and I decided to build it up. And so now what happens is our Thought Leadership Branding Club has 18,000 members, but there's about 50 lead moderators who are part of this inner circle community, and they run 35 weekly rooms, the majority without me. Because what I've done is I've created this community center where people come in and they do workshops and different things. And now they're all doing it because they see the vision, they see the intent, and I support them on their growth. And now it's running by itself. And so that's creating massive scale, even though I'm not always there for everything. So to me, those are probably, to me, integration community are probably the two biggest things that are time savers. In terms of gadgets, I mean, it's funny, I'm not really a tech gadget kind of guy, but there's a few small things that I like in my life, like this desk, for example. It's a standing desk, and I like it so that during the virtual world, when I do speeches, instead of sitting, I'm standing, I'm talking, and I love the standing desk. I think it's a game changer for particularly now virtual. One of my fellow colleagues is a virtual trainer. She's saying from now on she's never going to go anywhere because she doesn't want to take planes. She doesn't want to go. She has a very sophisticated system, and I was like, well, I still want to be in the live audience, but she wants to do that, which is totally fine. But the other one I would like to talk about is actually, this is kind of funny. Yeah, there's an app on my phone called, I've been working on my health for many, many years, since 2013, very actively trying to do it. And there's an app called Noom. And what I love about it, I've done every app there is. What I love about the Noom app is that not only does it have the tracking and all the different things you'd want to have an app to work on your weight, to work on your diabetes, work on all the different things you're dealing with, but there's also a psychology aspect. There's training and things you can read and things that you listen to while you're walking, and they focus on the psychology of eating and mental wellness and fitness, which is great. It's also non-judgmental. Like if something goes wrong or you input something bad, like, oh, okay, start again, no worries. And then it also has a coach, an individual coach and a group coach, and it's just so sophisticated. I'm like, this is amazing. This is like, I started using this. It's really changing my life. Like I really feel empowered. I really feel like it's doing a great job, and I'm not gonna get paid for this, but I'm totally promoting it and advocating it for everyone. It's a game changer of things that I've seen.
I know the app well. Good sound advice indeed. And I think if people can take time to invest in themselves and their own mental health and well-being, they will feel the better for it. Well, look, Bobby, I want to really thank you for your presence on today's call, which was a presence for sure to be felt. And I think you added a ton of value. I've no doubt we'll have you on the show again to participate. So thank you again. And we look forward to speaking to you in the future. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, certainly.
Thanks, Ross. Happy to be here. And it was a great conversation. And I hope to help as many people as I can.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
You've been listening to the Global Tech Leaders Podcast, designed for both established and aspiring career-focused tech rock stars, as well as helping leadership figure out how to speak global in today's multicultural world. For further details, check out sf-talent.com.